Sex, everyone talks about it. Most people want it. But why? It turns out we've all got sex on the brain. Science says it's not just about attraction or biology. In fact, sex might be more mental than physical. We're pulling back the sheets to uncover what really drives desire on why your brain is wired for sex. First of all, why do people have sex? It's pretty simple. It's so the human species can evolve. Humans and most animals have an evolutionary edge over organisms that reproduce through parthenogenesis, where the female decides to just give birth to a new organism on her own. And that advantage is genetic variety. By mixing genes with a partner, offspring are more adaptable and better equipped to survive whatever unpredictable future the environment throws their way. But you're probably not thinking about any of that while you're trying to unhook someone's bra. But deep down, your brain is hardwired to seek out a partner whose genes, when combined with yours, might give your future offspring the best shot at survival and ensure that 50% of you lives on. That drive becomes even more urgent when something is wrong in your environment or resources seem limited. Researchers weirdly came to this conclusion by studying animals that sometimes replicate through parthenogenesis and sometimes through sex. Monitor lizards, for example, will generally choose to have offspring through parthenogenesis when all is well, food is everywhere, and the climate is doing great. However, when there are stressors in the environment, like a toxic spill, they will usually choose sex over parthenogenesis. So even animals that can reproduce alone choose to combine genes when the future seems uncertain. But if that rule were true for humans, we'd all be having the most sex of our lives in this current climate. So clearly, human brains are a little more complicated when it comes to sex. To see why, let's examine the first step on the way to sex, for those with any standards. It's usually attraction to another person. But why and how do we even get attracted to people in the first place? Ever looked across the room and saw someone smiling at you? Then you immediately spill your drink on yourself and look like an idiot. Well, it's because your brain is releasing a whole slew of hormones to make you fall in lust and possibly love. Primarily dopamine and oxytocin, though we'll get into the specifics of those and other chemicals later. And those are released because, contrary to conventional wisdom, you don't fall in love with your heart, but rather with a combination of your hypothalamus, ventral tegmental area, and nucleus accumbens. But that doesn't sound nearly as romantic. And research shows that it's not just looks turning you on to drive you toward reproduction. A person's voice, symmetry, and even body odor can make your hypothalamus and amygdala sing. In addition to giving clues about your gender and age range, your voice contains hints about a lot more to a prospective partner, including indicators about your health, fertility, and even body shape. Researchers, including evolutionary psychologist Gordon Gallup, conducted an experiment in which they had students count from 1 to 10 in what we're sure was a very sexy way, and then they played the recordings for other students. The female voices rated the most attractive tended to be higher pitched and were also correlated to having a smaller waist-to-hip ratio, meaning that stereotypically hourglass figure men tend to find attractive in women. The male voices rated the most attractive were deeper and also correlated to a big shoulder-to-hip ratio, meaning broad shoulders and a back shaped like a V. It turns out there's a good evolutionary reason for people's voices giving us a lot of information about their appearance and reproductive potential. As Gallup says, back when humans dwelled in caves and didn't have electricity, when the sun went down, if you interacted with somebody, it would be based largely on the sound of their voice. You wouldn't be able to see their face. Even today, most questionable late-night hookup decisions happen under the cover of darkness. So back in prehistoric times, when pitch-black nights were the norm, it made perfect sense that our ancestors learned to pick up on important clues just from the sound of someone's voice. In fact, one of Gallup's other studies even found a small correlation between the attractiveness of a woman's voice and the point at which she is in her menstrual cycle. Women's voices during ovulation, when they're fertile, are rated the most attractive. Now on to smell. One of the most disgusting experiments ever conducted on the attractiveness of odor involved dozens of men wearing a t-shirt over a Sunday and Monday night so it could absorb their sweat and scent. Then, instead of washing the shirts like normal people, Scientists asked a bunch of women to smell them, which sounds like a kink we would rather not learn more about. Women then rated the shirt's smell in terms of pleasantness, intensity, and sexiness, without ever getting a look at the men who had worn them. When scientists examined who the women picked as the most pleasant and sexy, it was generally men who had the most dissimilar genes to the women, especially when it came to their MHC, or major histocompatibility complex. And that is actually a huge evolutionary win. If a woman mates with a man with dissimilar genes, it increases the chance that their children will not only be relatively attractive, but that her immune system will end up complementing her mate's immune system, which creates especially healthy children who are protected against a wider array of diseases. Weirdly, men don't seem to have this ability to detect immune system differences via smell. Scientists hypothesize that's because it's more costly for a woman to become pregnant in terms of time and energy invested and physical risk taken, so she has to be really sure that she is making the right decision when picking sexual partners in an era before birth control. Though more complex factors are also at play. The importance of someone's voice and odor in sexual attraction might be why you almost immediately lose interest in some people after you start chatting with them, or why your last 57 Hinge dates haven't gone so well. Laura Jermian, associate professor of psychiatry at Harvard Medical School, agrees. She says many have had the experience of where someone who is very attractive initially rapidly becomes unattractive after interacting with them in 5 to 10 minutes, because now you're integrating all of this other social information. Or maybe you have some stuff to work out in therapy.